MI5 and SIS each sent 2 or 3 officers to the meetings. The MI5 ones, who Panorama has established were present, were G9A1, Shayler himself, and 2 others using the MI5 internal acronym G9A15. The SIS ones were called, in their service jargon, PT16, PT16 Ops B, and the man meeting and running Tunworth, PT16B. At one of these meetings, Shayler discovered that PT16B's new agent was much more than a simple supplier of information.
PT16B, who was the kind of my opposite number in SIS, started to talk about how this guy was going to be involved in trying to plan an assassination attempt on Gaddafi using a Libyan Islamic extremist group. Basically, yeah, I mean, this is what he was coming up with SIS. I mean, that was the reason for the initial walk-in and so on. He was, I've got a plan, I've got people behind me. What I obviously need is the money to be able to buy the things I need.
Tunworth's intelligence was, we're told, shared with a small number of key officials. These reports are known in the secret jargon of Whitehall as CX. Shayler says a special CX report of Tunworth's information was put out. It contained details of what was brought together for the plan to kill Gaddafi. As is normal procedure, the CX report was sanitised. It didn't explicitly spell out that PT16B's agent was himself a part of the conspiracy to kill Gaddafi.
And when I first heard the story, I thought, well, this is kind of boy's own James Bond SIS stuff. We'll probably hear about it for a month, then it'll disappear, and we'll never hear about anything again. In this particular case, however, they were actually put out as a CX report to Whitehall, probably to the Foreign Office, certainly obviously to us, probably to GCHQ, may not have been to GCHQ.
So they were obviously very excited about this.
Very excited about it as well. But even then, I mean, my thinking still was, I mean, OK, they've put this out, they're saying that, they're obviously not saying they're involved at the moment, because what they're saying, they've got a source reporting on somebody else doing it, which obviously is one of the ways of hiding the source of your intelligence. My thinking still even then was that this is still boy's own stuff, and I don't think this is going to happen. I mean, it's just like so many things they've told me, it's not going to happen.
As the plan to kill Gaddafi took shape inside Libya, the SIS officer PT16B met his agent Tunworth again. As SIS's relationship with Tunworth deepened, a substantial sum of money was changing hands.
So we're talking about something like about £100,000 to fund the assassination attempt against Gaddafi, which of course all comes from the British taxpayer.
Britain's agent Tunworth was a part of the conspiracy. He became SIS's link with the militant Islamic group, a hardline organisation headed by Abdullah as-Sadiq. In the past, several Arab countries have said that Britain is harbouring Islamic militants. With its large Middle Eastern community, London has become an alternative political capital for the Arab world. Libya has publicly accused Britain of giving refuge to the leader of the militant Islamic group. In response to our inquiries, the Foreign Office remarkably says it doesn't know if Abdullah as-Sadiq is in this country. Late in February 1996, the militant Islamic group went into action. They'd learned that Colonel Gaddafi's car was going to pass on a road near the city of Sirte. The terrorists had put a bomb under the road and waited. They set it off. Several bodyguards are thought to have died. In the gun battle which followed, 3 members of the militant Islamic group were also reportedly killed. Shortly after the attack failed, intelligence reports were received and sent back to London, where they ended up on David Shayler's desk.
In 1996, saying that an attempt had been made on Gaddafi's life, that in fact a bomb had been put under a car in a cavalcade. Gaddafi was travelling in the cavalcade, but in a different car, so the explosion had gone off and there'd been various casualties, fatalities, but in fact they'd got the wrong people. Now even then I was still thinking, well, this could be a result of the Islamic extremist activity going on in Libya in general. I mean, there was another intelligence report which wasn't quite as detailed, but this again was supporting the fact that the thing had happened.
A few days later, at the offices of an Arabic newspaper in London, a fax arrived at the desk of Camille Tawil. In it, the militant Islamic group claimed responsibility for the attack. They also identified the members of its team who they said had been martyred in the bid to kill Gaddafi.
I remember receiving a statement by fax from this group, the Islamic Fighting Group, saying that they are responsible for an assassination attempt on the life of Gaddafi. I read the statement. It contained several names. The statement claimed that they were involved in the assassination attempt. I felt it was a credible information given to me, but I wanted to verify the story. I contacted other Libyan groups and they gave me a similar account to what has happened. This is why I decided to publish the story.
Shayler didn't realise the full implications of the intelligence report until the next meeting of the joint group. It was MI5's turn to host. Officers filed into room 470 at Thames House. Once again, PT-16B, the SIS man who ran Tunworth, was there.
It was only when I met PT-16B, discussing other matters with him, that he made a kind of note of triumph, saying that, yes, we've done it. We are the kind of intelligence service that people think we are almost, My reaction was one of total shock. I mean, this was kind of really against what I thought I was doing in the intelligence services. And against what people have been telling me as well. I mean, against what I've been telling people. In my job in MI5, I knew quite a few journalists, because I used to be a journalist, and from time to time conversation would come up about the work of the intelligence services and so on. And I would say these stories are either rubbish or somebody's completely misunderstood what's going on. And the intelligence services don't get up to the things that were reported in the 1980s. I mean, there's been some bizarre stories about them being involved in murdering Princess Diana's bodyguard and so on. And I was very determined to sort of tell these people this sort of thing didn't go on. But this was a kind of refutation of that. Suddenly it was like this sort of thing does go on. I was absolutely astounded when I heard that this was the case, because, I say, my thinking up and then about SIS is that they were involved in a kind of boys' own comic, and suddenly this was very real. Suddenly we're talking about tens of thousands of pounds of taxpayers' money being used to attempt to assassinate a foreign head of state.
So is that shocking claim about what went on at the key meeting here true? In the course of investigating Shayler's allegations, I have corroborated many of the key facts. There were indeed a series of meetings involving Shayler and the SIS officer PT-16B. Britain did have advanced knowledge of the attempt on Colonel Gaddafi's life, and British intelligence was using its Arab agent Tunworth as a cutout or go-between with Islamic militant groups in Libya. All of this begs the question, just exactly who knew what SIS was up to? SIS's foreign operations are governed both by law and Whitehall Convention. A sensitive foreign operation requires the intelligence agency to draw up a submission. This is sent across the Thames to the Foreign Office, where officials may alter it. It then goes to the desk either of a junior minister or the Foreign Secretary himself.
In this case, obviously, because you are giving money to a group to go and assassinate a foreign head of state, they actually said to me, we're going to submit, but we think it's going to go all the way to the top.
And it did?
And it did, yes. I mean, that's what he was saying, yes. I mean, obviously not at the same time, but later on they said it had gone to the top and they got authority from the top.
But did they get authority from their political masters here at the Foreign Office? Well, two well-placed people have told me that the Tory ministers running this department at the time gave no such authorisation. This leaves open several possibilities. That the SIS man, PT-16B, was lying at those crucial meetings, perhaps to try and impress his MI5 colleagues, or that an assassination operation went ahead without any kind of political approval. In short, that Britain's intelligence service was operating completely out of control. There are precedents for SIS using Arab assassination groups. In the 50s, they organised a group of Egyptians for an attempt to kill President Nasser. It wasn't authorised by ministers, it was discovered by Nasser, and after this scandal the current procedures were put in place. More recently, there's considerable evidence that Britain cooperated with the CIA in attempts to overthrow Saddam Hussein. In this case, though, the plots were authorised by ministers. And what would have happened if the bomb against Gaddafi had been successful?
Our assessment was that if Gaddafi wasn't there, if Gaddafi died of a heart attack tomorrow, somebody else could be in a position to turn around and hand over the two suspects for Lockerbie. So Gaddafi was obviously the main. Well, I mean, Gaddafi is Libya. I mean, it's, not many people would rule a country like that that's relatively unstable 25 years without being able to do it in a particularly, well, obviously a draconian way, but a kind of fairly efficient way as well.
For Shayler, there's little doubt that SIS masterminded the Gaddafi operation and that he's morally justified in revealing it.
Essentially, you're paying, in the region of what I can understand is £100,000 eventually, to carry out the murder of a foreign head of state. And that's quite apart from the fact this money is being used, obviously, because the attack went wrong, to kill innocent people. No matter who is funding international terrorism, they are still funding international terrorism. And I mean, okay, the Brits might argue that, might try and argue that we're the good guys, but it's a very difficult road to go down.
It is true, of course, that Shayler's knowledge of this affair depends entirely on what the SIS man, PT-16B, told him at their meetings. But certain pieces of this Libyan jigsaw cannot easily be argued away by SIS. There was an assassination attempt. Numerous Libyan sources confirm it. Britain did have a relationship with the agent Tunworth. Any inquiry into Shayler's allegations will be able to find the key CX report which detailed the plot against Gaddafi, so showing Tunworth's inside knowledge.
Obviously, it wasn't saying we have an agent here who's going to go and assassinate Gaddafi. What it was saying is there is an agent reporting that there is a group who have taken certain steps towards the assassination of Gaddafi. I mean, it did go. I mean, it was much longer than what the sort of stuff you normally got from SIS. I mean, normally a CX report would be a sheet of A4, 2 sheets of A4 at most, and this was 3 or 4 sides of A4.
Somewhere in Whitehall, then, there should be copies of that secret memo, detailing SIS's advanced knowledge of the plot and proximity to it. As for MI5's copy, Shayler tells me he even remembers the file number.